Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Rebecca, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Let's just jump straight into it. What
Thank you,
got
Guillaume.
you into consulting?
What got me into consulting? Well, I was practically a child. I was 24, fresh out of college,
All right.
and I went to a lot of seminars in my first job, which was also at the university of which I graduated. And so I was very assertive in the courses, and my boss let me take a lot of them because they cost $6 to take. And so the HR person, the learning and development person, pulled me aside one day and said, "Would you be willing to teach a course for the other staff members of this 6,000 staff university?" And I said, "Well, sure. What do you want me to talk about?" And she goes, "Assertiveness." And I said, "Well, I've never taken a course on assertiveness, so I would read up about it. And why do you want me to do that?" And she goes, "Because you live your life assertively, create win-win situations in the people you interact with, and I want the other staff to know how to do that." Okay, great. So I did that, and then other people came to me and wanted me to do seminars at first, do seminars on other things that they decided I was an exemplar on. So getting a lot done, communication, things like that. And then that morphed into bigger consulting contracts where the seminars were maybe part of a bigger contract where I did a keynote speech in front of the whole staff. And then I did some seminars, and then I did some one-on-one coaching with the executives. So it was a consulting package of how do we create the change that we want in the staff to be excellent. So that's how I got into this consulting umbrella. And my focus is mostly on the speaking part and in person and now virtually. And I do the consulting as part of that bigger package. I also do year-long management academies where, again, we're looking at what do we want the skills to be of the managers and how do we build those skills over a year.
You teach such a difficult soft skill to teach, assertiveness. It's not like you can wake up and say, okay, this is how you operationalize assertiveness, right? It's like being very clear on what you want and what you think, being willing to defend that idea, that concepts, all whilst leaving room for the others. But, standing your ground, especially, like, how do you teach that?
Well, now it's morphed into communicating with influence. We don't call it assertiveness anymore because that's sort of passé, but they're all the same people skills. It's, as you say, how do you craft your thoughts into a cogent message? How do you then express those thoughts in a way that is the other person is receptive to hearing them, even if they don't agree? How do you manage that dance of if they don't agree, how do they disagree agreeably? How do you disagree agreeably? How do you continue to discuss whatever the issue is until there's some at least mutual understanding? Whether there's mutual agreement or not, that's a whole different ball game, but at least getting to the point where you understand each other. That's what it's morphed to.
So, can you tell us a bit more about the problem that you solve now, Rebecca?
So I have two main prongs to my business. And again, they can be delivered both in person and virtually. So the biggest problem I see with the Management Academy is the managers have either never gotten or forgotten best practices in management. And they say things, they do things that you just cringe when you hear about. So this usually it's a year-long course, and we meet every month or even sometimes every 2 weeks. And they have implementation homework in between. They usually get a learning buddy that they meet with when we're not meeting as a group, and we just build their skills sequentially over time. So that's one prong of my business. And the second prong is helping people be better virtual communicators. How to, again, some of what we already talked about, how to be cogent, how to be clear, and then in this virtual environment, how to do so to keep people's attention. And that's almost everybody has that problem, has that issue, is keeping, because it's so easy to multitask when we're virtual, right? Especially if we turn our camera off. Oh man, you can get a lot done while you're listening to somebody prattle on about inconsequential stuff.
It is so I think we live in an era where it's never been easier to do anything because information is just at the tip of our fingers, literally. But it's also never been easier to get distracted and to get into something else and to receive a notification from one of the gazillion apps we have on our phone. So I like this focus. Who is, just to close the loop on this, Rebecca, who is your target audience? Like who is it that you're trying to get into a room with to make a decision to hire you and work with you?
It could be anywhere from the CEO to someone in the C-suite, to either COO or Chief Learning Officer, or sometimes even a director of a department or a division who says, my people need to enhance their skills. And often, if I can get the decision maker to see where they have some potential skill enhancement available, shall we say, then and I can get them to move at least a spot or two to say, oh, hey, I didn't know this was really an issue, but now with these little refinements, I'm even better. Those are the folks that I like to work with.
So, and I guess we're going to get into the core of your own business, but I think we're very clear on who you're helping with what problem, like what outcome you help them achieve. How do you market yourself? How do you brand yourself? You mentioned before we started recording that you've been on 100 podcasts, if not more. I'm suspecting this is part of it. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
So how do I do it? I'm sorry, I lost you there for a second. Go
How
ahead.
do you brand and market
Oh,
yourself?
that's
How
good.
does
Oh, sorry,
one
sorry.
become aware of what Rebecca offers?
Sure. So I've been in business for a long time, and now it's mostly repeat and referral business, word of mouth. I also do things like this, or I do um, samples, previews of sessions that people can come to virtually and see if I'm their cup of tea. So that, maybe doing presentations in front of a target audience and association of those decision makers, those all fit. I know we're going to talk about what I need to do better, but social media is one of those ones that I need to do better. I'm not great at that.
So referral, repeat business. So as I always say, for me, this is a sign of a great consultant, right? If you are a consultant or B2B coach and your clients don't refer you to other people, you're not getting your clients to want to work more with you. There is something that you need to fix at the core of the offer, anyways, because that's basically our business. We are experts. We need to get hired because we're such an expert that people want other people like them to benefit from it and like shine a light on them for introducing the right person. So for me, referral is kind of the base, and then there is one, two, three other acquisition channels. So in your case, let's take the example of podcasts, for instance. Why did you decide to go on that many podcasts in your career so far?
Well, I think it's all part of the marketing mix. You say, if you have X hundreds of thousands of followers and some percentage of those watch this, then some percentage will say, hey, I want to know more. I'm going to reach out and have a free consultation with Rebecca and see what she has and how it might fit our needs. So that's, and it's like when I was on Oprah, she had millions of followers, right? Millions of people watching her. And
Literally.
so you would never, or when I was on 60 Minutes, you would never say no to those opportunities because of the audiences that you can be in front of. So yours was one of those that I said, yes, this sounds interesting. A Frenchman who sounds German, but hey, it sounds like fun.
Happens. So I like that. And to double down a bit on the format, and whether that's honestly whether that's podcast or TV with 60 minutes or like those big format, I think as B2B coaches and consultants, there is two components to marketing really. There is the getting access to an audience that has your ideal client in it, for sure. Like speaking to the right people is super important, especially when we are starting to get niche with our offer, with our targeting. So like getting in front of the right audience is super important. But in my opinion, there is this second component of because you're hired, because people think or perceive that you're an expert, finding a channel, finding a marketing mix that allows you to display this authority is super important. And I mean, we're starting to get to know each other, Rebecca, and I like it. But when I hear someone, hey, I've been on 100 podcasts to talk about this topic, I'm like, okay, I don't know how good they are, but for sure they must know something about that topic. When I know that they've been invited to 60 Minutes, Oprah, or like that many podcasts, that showcases something. And I think for the coaches and consultants listening to us right now, or when this episode goes live on the podcast platforms, finding that channel that will allow you to get in front of the right audience, but also being perceived as an authority is game changer because you can also refer it back to it in your sales funnel. Like, hey, just listen to me on this episode where I break down exactly the system. Authority is key. Closing the parenthesis, that was a very long winded doubling down. How do you go from that, Rebecca, to actually the finish line, right? So I understand how you get people to get into your ecosystem, right? To go from stranger to, hey, I know Rebecca and she helps with X, Y, Z. What does the sales motion look like? How do you get people to say, okay, SOW, letter of engagement, let's rock and roll?
Well, I'm pleasantly persistent, meaning that I have good follow-up mechanisms. And in the initial conversation, I ask them, what are our next steps? Or what do you need from me? Or when should we talk again? And then once I'm letting them tell me when they want to be contacted, I calendar that. So I make sure that I contact them within that time frame. And believe it or not, Gio, very, very, very few people do that. Very few people follow up. And to me, follow up is the sign of a professional, that they've got their act together and they've figured out how to get back to somebody when they say they do. And to me, my word is so important. And other people, if they promise something, I expect them to do it when they said they did. And if they don't, that's a huge demerit in my mind for them. So I want to, as best to my ability, exemplify what I consider professional behavior. So follow-up is really important to me. So then once we have that conversation and they have some experience of me. So if I'm referred, they've already got a good feeling because their colleague thought that I did a good job for them. So that's why I offer to do a sample, do a half an hour meeting for their team virtually, or come to this preview, because we can't work with everybody, and we need to work with the people that we resonate with, that we get along with, that we have similar values. So if they come to one of my sessions and they say, oh, Rebecca's not my cup of tea, great, okay, move on. Less follow up for me. I don't, I'd rather they tell me that than string me along.
Can you? So I'd like to get a bit tactical on this because this is key. I have a few things I want to double down on, but I want to hear your thoughts first. What does that follow-up sequence look like? Like, what type of email is it? Which frequency? For how long? Like, can you get a bit tactical around those follow-ups?
Okay, again, I go back to them. If I've had an initial contact with them, whether that's email or they made an appointment, then I always ask them, when would you like me to follow up and how do you want me to do that? And if they prefer text, great. If they prefer email, if they prefer LinkedIn messaging, you know, that's part of being customer responsive, I think, is learning how they prefer the messaging and adapting to that. It's one of my pet peeves, that, frankly, when people say, oh, I never read my LinkedIn messages. Well, why are you on LinkedIn then? What?
What
Like,
the hell are you doing?
yeah, like, why does somebody have to learn your preferences? Can't you be coherent and responsive in various kinds of outreach? Whether that's a DM or whatever it is, you need to be versatile in that, proficient in that.
like it a lot. So key
So
thing that you just mentioned here is actually following up with your leads and prospects where they are responsive. And something that we typically advise is when you start the follow-ups, try a follow-up on every channel and see which one they answer on. And then you focus on this one. And then in terms of to get a bit tactical, because I want the coaches and consultants listening to us to like have some practical insights that they can implement. What we do and we help our clients do is first 3 days of entering into contact with a new lead, right? New lead entering into your ecosystem, you want to send one follow-up per day. What the first follow-up will be your best case study, your best transformation, which is relevant to them, obviously. Second email is your best transformation or your best case study. So either you go for your first case study, best case study first, and best transformation second, or vice versa. Third email is your best industry insights. It's not related to you. It's just based on the markets and what you're offering and why it's important overall to develop the skill or to implement the system that you help implementing. And then you can go to 1 to 2 email per week where you do a mix of objections pre-handling, case studies, and transformations as well. You paper that into your emails with a regular call to action to book a new call or to ask any questions if they have some. You nurture that authority by doing so, and you lower the barriers that they may have or the doubt that they may have in hiring you or working with you. Any thoughts on that, Rebecca? What are your thoughts on this?
well, so they don't enter my ecosystem unless they've had some experience of me.
Right.
So
Right.
I would try to close for a one-on-one call.
Right
I
away.
Yeah, I would because otherwise it's kind of all about me. If I'm sending them things I think might be of interest to them, I would rather have a call and see what's of interest to them, and then I can follow up with resources that are relevant to them.
So
And that's one of the biggest
sure.
mistakes I see. So one of my books is called Professional Selling: Practical Secrets for Successful Sales. So I have 28
Okay.
books, two of which have sold over 250,000 copies, and that's one of them is professional
Amazing.
selling. And so one of the biggest things I see in salespeople is their communication is too much about them. Here's my best case study. Here's my blah, 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 rather than saying, so, finding out what's in it, what their issues are. And
Yeah.
it's a harder close because you're trying to get their time. But again, if they've come into my ecosystem, they've opted in
Yeah.
to, and so they already theoretically at least should be open to having a brief call. Doesn't happen 100%, but it's rather than just blanket sending to people on LinkedIn that you really have no connection with, or however you're going to do that.
I agree. So that would be more once they opt in with their email in what we do. And in every other email, you would have a call to action towards booking a call with you. Now, the thing is, I understand this, I like this back and forth. The thing with the asking for a call directly, you know more than us, Rebecca, for sure. But sometimes it's a bit too much of a step, too big of a step for certain people. They are not willing to take that leap yet to get into a call. And that's why nurturing them via follow-ups is important. But yeah, if you can get into a call with someone who seems to be your ideal client and that you know you can help, the thing I often say is like it's your moral responsibility to get into a call with that person so that you can help them. And if it's not the right fit, then it's not the right fit. But like the call is usually the right outcome for you and for the prospect. Ooh, I love this. Okay, so I think we have a clear understanding of how you market. You didn't mention the 28 books. That's also a good way to market, I suspect, especially when some of them sell for 200,000 plus copies. Um, Podcast, referrals, books, that's the finish line. You get them into a call, you see how you can work with them, and you're very active on follow-ups. One of the things I learned when I was at PricewaterhouseCoopers is actually that's the partner who taught me everything that told me this. There are two types of consultants, Rebecca. There are the hunters and there are the farmers. And he was like, Guillaume, I'm a hunter. Like I love the smell of fresh blood in the morning. I love to go after new business. But the partners making the most money and growing the fastest are the farmers, the ones who are able to take that initial engagement and transform it into a multi-layered, multi-year project. How do you do retention, Rebecca? How do you do that? How do you farm?
I think it's pretty much what we talked about. It's all the. I wish that I knew which one channel was the most effective, but every year it's a different mix. So you just have to keep mixing it up and trying new things and keeping. The other sad thing is you find you look back over 2 years ago or 3 years ago and you go, oh, this produced some results. Why did I stop doing this? Because we're seeking a new 100% guaranteed way to bring clients, high paid, perfect clients in the door. And I wish I had that magic formula, but I don't. So I just keep the mix.
So that's how to get clients, right? My question was more, once you get them in, how do you make sure that you keep them for as long as possible, whilst bringing value to them, obviously, right? Because they won't stay if they are not getting something out of this. But what do you put in place? How do you optimize for retention once you get those clients in?
Oh gosh, I think it's really just, it's so simple. It's just that communication of after a piece of a project is done, I really see my engagements as partnerships with my client. So like I'm internal but external, and so keep in the loop of, okay, how did that work? What's the results that you're seeing? As you know, a lot of my projects I can actually measure results, and that's pretty uncommon. So I do tout that. So, what results are we seeing? What do we need to tweak? Next time, what do we need to do differently? And I've had some clients for decades because I keep being with them. That answer your question since I didn't answer it initially?
No, it does. So I think again, for something that B2B coaches and consultants can take away, right? Having a way to measure throughout all the steps of the process, so that because sometimes you get into a multi-month, sometimes multiple quarter, sometimes multiple year project, and you arrive at the end of month 18, the project is not, but the client actually forgot how far they went and like where you were at the start. So being able to measure all those milestones, all those steps, capture their feedback at those moments, can be super useful for testimonials, case studies, but also to be like, hey guys, so this is it. We're done with this engagement. Look at everything we've accomplished together. Those are the milestones. This is what we said during those different periods. This is where we are now. By the way, we established a new roadmap because now we have a clear strategy, right? But this is how you implement. Hey, happy to implement together with you. Being able to have that backlog and to prove everything that happens, even if the client was there doing it for you, with you, sorry, is super, super important. Rebecca, you've been doing this for quite some times. You've been doing business for a long time. Those are your words, not mine. Um, Hundreds of podcasts, dozens of books. Where are you stuck right now?
Right now it is the social media. It is
Interesting.
okay. I'm going to sound like I'm a luddite, but I live in the middle of Silicon Valley,
Okay.
and all of my non-Silicon Valley friends say I'm the most tech savvy person they know. In Silicon Valley, I am a baby. I am a kindergartner compared to the people that I hang out with. So, I don't consume Instagram or X or Twitter. I don't consume them. I never go on them. I think they're a waste of time. So I
And
then
what?
don't create content for them. So during the pandemic in June of 2020, I engaged 13 interns to help me. Oh, wait, there's more.
Interns.
Wait, there's more. And because they live on social media, right? So they're social media natives and they helped me make some baby steps. So since that June 2020, my 13 interns, I now am up to almost 200 interns that I have worked with in the last 5 years.
What?
I know. I know. Some of them have been more effective than others, but they introduced me to Instagram Reel. I had no idea what an Instagram Reel was, or these things that I don't know because I don't go on those sites. So I'm still nowhere near where I would like to be, where I think I should be on those platforms, but I'm further along than left to my own devices.
I think that's important though. Like, and so thanks a lot for sharing this, Rebecca. What I want to understand is for other B2B coaches and consultants, potentially not being very active on social media. Why do you think that is important?
I think YouTube especially is important, that it goes back to when someone has had an experience of me, they either resonate or don't. And if they do, then how else would they find me if they weren't referred by one of my clients or my colleagues? So it's findability. And to your point earlier, it's about expertise and really establishing yourself with some gravitas that you know what you're talking about. And my sweet spot is not just imparting advice or information, but it's the implementation piece of helping make sure that the ideas that we discuss that they agree with are implemented. And whether I do that in a group setting, in a seminar where I spread out my seminars, typically not just one-offs, because I know from adult learning that creates very little change usually in a one-off seminar, but I'll space them out over time. For example, right now I'm doing a series of the virtual master presenter programs, which is 5 weeks, 3 hours a week, and they have homework in between, some of which they self-assign. I have them commit to what they're going to do, and a few I assign to them. But they have a learning buddy in between that they check in with. They show their work. They get feedback from that person, and that creates phenomenal results, more so than if I just did the 15 hours over, let's say, a 2-day program. That would create some results, but giving people chunks of bite-sized information creates such bigger change. So that's the YouTube et al. Will actually, you don't use et al. If they're not people, but et cetera, that will give people a taste of my ideas and my style and see if they want to have more.
Okay, so again, to quickly double down, because I think this is super important. As a B2B coach or consultant, you know that you are the experts. Your clients know that you are the experts. The people who pull you in for engagements know that you're the experts. And that's it. Having a YouTube channel, a LinkedIn profile, Instagram, TikTok, if you like to do some dances as well, is not just for discoverability, meaning, yes, you will tap into a new audience that can potentially become leads, who potentially become partners, referral partners, clients, whatsoever. But it's also that content that people will be able to find once they hear from you from another source, and they'll be like, oh, okay, sure, I'm gonna check this person's out. Like, what are they doing? Oh, they released a 20 minutes video explaining how to solve the exact problem that I'm looking to solve right now, and I can implement some actionable advice from it. Well, I already got value from them. So when they get into a call with you, the close is much faster, much easier, because there is all that content available. I mean, it's not for nothing that I stream all those episodes multiple times a day. It's because people get into my ecosystem and they see, oh, okay, like definitely this guy talks about podcasts. Actually, he does 2 to 3 a day. He must know a thing or two. And then they get into the ecosystem, they get more value, and eventually they get into a call with me. What's the next big thing for you, Rebecca? 3 to 6 months. What happens next? What's the big opportunity for growth?
So a couple of things. The aforementioned social media, growing that, but in addition to my 5-part virtual master presenter course, where I'm going to be offering a 3-part for just corporate presenters, people who give a presentation maybe once a week. They do a report of a staff meeting. There are maybe some slides. Maybe they're going to report to the board. Maybe they do some customer training, but not for professional presenters, whether those be internal and external. So the longer course is more for the people who want all the nuances, the nitty gritty, etc. The shorter course, the 3-session course, I call virtual presentation polish. I call it, and that's how to have your background not be distracting, how to make eye contact, how to not have your slides suck, be able to keep people engaged without them multitasking or even being tempted to multitask, because your session, whether that be a 10-minute report or an hour or 2 or 3 more intense training, but you want them with you. And as we said, it's so easy to do other things. And I'm the worst. I am actually the worst as a participant in webinars, live webinars especially, because most of them are presented as if the audience doesn't matter, as if the audience isn't even there. And there's an occasional, oh, write in the chat a Y or an N if you agree or don't agree. I mean, oh yeah, yeah. So I fold my laundry, I empty the dishwasher, I curl my hair, I do all sorts of things. I get a lot done during these mediocre webinars, and 99% of them are mediocre at best. So there's lots of room to improve. And the people in that shorter course, the polished course, I think will see just significant growth because they will be perceived as cogent and competent and able to express themselves clearly in a virtual environment and keep the audience's attention. And then they'll be getting better, good, nicer projects and perhaps raises and promotions. That's how I envision that. So that's my project, and I'll probably release that at the beginning of 2026. Well, and all of my sessions are live because I believe watching a video of my sessions versus live is like watching a video of a massage versus getting a massage.
Analogy. I like it.
That
I'd rather have it.
you have to experience it yourself. You can't just watch and fold your laundry like I do with these mediocre sessions. So that's what's on the horizon.
I recently, so I'm a child of COVID. My first real work experience was during COVID. We built this company completely remotely. 2 months ago, I decided to come to the US, and my perspective on being in person, attending to things live has completely shifted. So couldn't agree more with you, Rebecca. Have you watched Alex Hormoz's launch of the $100 million money model? This was a live webinar. This was really interesting. I'm curious to get your take on it. I'll send you the link. To wrap this up, if you had an advice for all those people doing shitty webinars, not really converting or interesting, what's your, and I know it's never about that one silver bullet, it's going to be a thousand golden BBs, but what would be your top 3 advice to create virtual presentations that convert?
First of all, I would have a colleague or somebody that is maybe higher skilled than you at virtual review what you're doing and see if there are refinements available. So just yesterday, I had a colleague, I have a new camera, and I had a colleague on the phone on a Zoom to see, we compared the cameras, or your microphone, or your background, or if I were that person for you, my friend, I would say we need to find a different virtual background because we're losing your ears and part of your body to this brick wall behind you. So we need to find another solution for you. So
Good one.
And then investing in your professional growth of, how can I make my slides better? I know we talked about maybe showing some slides. I don't think we have time to do that, but I have a whole progression of, okay, this is what I commonly see. Black 14-point type on a white background, no builds. Oh man, it's so boring. Well, what if we added some color? What if we bumped the font size? What if we did a build so that what you want to talk about comes in as you want to talk about it, not all at once. So one would think these are nuances, but really they're fundamental to making your virtual better. And since one study of a live conference found that 54% of their live attendees, virtual attendees, came on their phones, and I extrapolate that to be, okay, maybe your audience isn't 54% on the phones, but it's a lot more than you might think they're on their phones. So designing your virtual with those folks in mind so that they don't have to hold their phone up like this, or they're not continually swiping out to be able to see the text. So designing your presentation for the worst possible scenario, and then the rest of it is gravy. So then the people on their laptops or like I have a 61-inch monitor, I can see things fine. But if I'm on my phone, I can't. So if you're designing for a phone, it'll be fine on a monitor. It'll be even fine in person. But most people don't think that way. So those were a couple of tips off the top of my head.
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. We do this for thumbnails on YouTube because people don't realize that 70% consume YouTube videos on their smartphone, which means the screen is already tiny. So if you make like a gazillion details on your thumbnail, that's not gonna fly. But I like it. I didn't know people were consuming webinars that much with their phone.
And I'm interpolating that. I don't know. I just know this one study because they had the data of how people logged in on what devices. So I, have, and I kind of think, I mean, maybe in a corporate environment, people aren't doing their phones as much, but for the kinds of things our consultants are doing, our listeners are doing, our watchers, I would think that people are going to watch while they're commuting or while they're on the treadmill or while they're out for a walking the dog, or they're consuming these other environments. So if we design for the worst, we'll be gravy, will be golden for the other environments.
Rebecca Morgan, ladies and gentlemen. Rebecca, if people want to find out more about you and what you do, where should they go?
It's so easy. It's just RebeccaMorgan.com. Got all my socials there. I've got the descriptions of the program. All the socials are linked there. Just know that I don't do them. Somebody else does them.
One of the 200 interns does it.
Right.
Amazing. We'll put all the links in the description. And I can say for sure that you got one new connection at least from this conversation. Me. I just added you on LinkedIn. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.